Welcome. This brief video is presented by Concerned Citizens of Western Montana, a citizens group dedicated to making Montana great again by exposing deep-rooted corruption in state government and its agencies, as well as our so-called United States representatives. Through information and education, our goal is to show how these entities work together to advance an agenda that is harmful to all Montanans. This video discusses Jon Tester's support and sponsorship of Senate Bill 3013, titled the Salish and Kootenai Water Rights Settlement Act of 2016. Although this bill did not make it out of committee in the last session, Jon Tester has promised to reintroduce it after conferring with the tribes. First, we'd like to provide some context by commenting on the stunning amount of federal money awarded to Montana tribes each year. Jon Tester was elected to the United States Senate in 2006. Since 2008, Montana's 7 tribal governments have received a combined total of $3.9 billion federal dollars, averaging an astounding $460 million per year. This money was paid out to 82 different tribal corporations through 319 various federal funding programs, including self-determination and other contracts, grants, and other financial assistance programs. To the best of our knowledge, there is little accountability for or scrutiny as to how these funds are spent. However, we do know that a large portion of funds are used to hire attorneys, state and federal lobbyists, and grant writers, specifically for the purpose of ensuring that all of that money and more keeps coming their way. The Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes receive 53% of this money, averaging $250 million per year. To demonstrate just how out of control this spending is, here is an example of annual general government expenditures of the CSKT, responsible only for its 5,000 members, compared to Lake County, Montana, responsible for 29,000 citizens, including the same 5,000 tribal members. In 2016, the CSKT spent $177 million for a per capita expenditure of $35,400 per member. In 2014, Lake County spent $19 million for a per capita expenditure of $671. Lake County is not the only local government with this problem. Official federal and state spending information shows this disparity exists throughout the state, suggesting that small governments and municipalities are being buried under the weight of these vast amounts of federal money that are being awarded to tribes. We argue that all of this free federal money serves to undermine local governance and diminish the legal and constitutional rights and protections of all citizens, including individual tribal members who, for the most part, do not appear to benefit from this government largesse. We'd also like to note that these figures are very conservative and do not include all sources of federal payments to the tribes. Due diligence is the process of acquiring objective and reliable information prior to a decision. It is the care that a reasonable person exercises to avoid harm to other persons or their property. So what due diligence would a reasonable person expect their United States Senator do before sponsoring a bill impacting 1/3 of the citizens living in their state? We believe the minimum requirements to be: every legislator swears an oath to uphold and protect the Constitution. Therefore, legislation that violates the Constitution must be rejected. In this day and age, most, if not all, federal legislation is written by special interest lobbyists. However, it is reasonable for citizens to expect that the sponsor of legislation be actively involved in the process of writing it and to have a thorough understanding of its contents and its consequences. Once drafted, they should thoroughly read the proposed legislation to ensure the problem it is intended to address will in fact be remedied and that it does not create any new problems. They are also responsible to discuss the proposed legislation with citizens that will be impacted by it, including those who support it and those who would oppose it. Due diligence also means the legislator verify that proper studies have been completed to ensure that property rights are not violated, that local economies are not negatively impacted, and an informed decision is possible. So, with that in mind, did Jon Tester complete his due diligence on Senate Bill 3013? Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that he did, and look at just a few important aspects of the bill that he alone sponsored in 2016. Think of Senator Tester's bill as a big burrito all wrapped up in a 59-page package. Jon Tester designed Senate Bill 3013 to be a wraparound bill. It began with the insertion of the 1,500-page Flathead Water Compact, an extremely controversial and questionable Indian water settlement approved by the Montana legislature with a simple majority vote in 2015. As crafter of the bill, Tester artfully wrapped around the compact his proposed federal portion of the financial settlement with the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. It is intended to be repayment to the tribes for federal government wrongdoing. In essence, it is an admission by the federal government that they should not have invited homesteaders to settle in western Montana or to purchase lands within the boundaries of the former reservation, despite the fact that the Hellgate Treaty allowed for the opening of the reservation. While this attempt to rewrite history is bad enough, it is the details behind his simple 59-page bill that shine a bright light on the true intended consequences of this far-reaching legislation. To fully understand Tester's bill, we must begin with the whole purpose of the legislation in the first place: to settle the tribe's water claims with the state of Montana and the federal government. Although Jon Tester did not include the 1,500-page water compact in his bill, it is the heart of everything. To provide some context first, 29,000 people reside within the historic boundaries of the reservation. 24,000 are non-Indians. About 5,000 or 17% of the population consists of tribal members. Non-Indians own about half of the land within the former reservation boundaries, and because these are private fee lands, are subject to full taxation by the state. On the other hand, the tribes are not subject to the same taxation. In the early 1990s, the state began negotiating with the CSKT. At that time, the tribe demanded, all water on and under the reservation is owned by the United States in trust for the tribes. The tribes would control and administer all of the water within reservation boundaries, and the tribe must be awarded off-reservation Aboriginal water rights. After 30 years of negotiation, the final compact included all of the tribe's original demands. These concessions by the state of Montana dismantle the current notion of federal reserved water rights, creating a new creature called tribal reserved water rights. These cessions serve to erode and undermine land patents and water rights, paving the way for a domino effect throughout the western United States. How is it possible that after 30 years of negotiation, all of the tribe's original unreasonable demands, once called non-starters by state officials, were ultimately granted by the state of Montana? Does Jon Tester know how much water the United States CSKT was awarded in this settlement, and specifically what its monetary value is? Assuming he did his due diligence, he does. But because he failed to provide it in his legislation, here are the numbers. The appendices to the settlement show that between 28 and 48 million acre-feet of water per year was awarded to the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. That is most, if not all, of the water in western Montana. Nearly every drop of it was given a time immemorial priority date, making the water rights of 360,000 western Montanans irrelevant and dependent upon the benevolence of the CSKT Tribal Corporation elite. This so-called settlement is not even in the same universe as other tribal water settlements in the United States, including the other tribes in the state of Montana. This chart compares the conservative lower-end estimate against all of the other federal water rights settlements with other tribes in the United States. If the settlement is ratified as is, the CSKT will receive 4 times more water than all other tribes in the United States combined have received to date. We cannot help but wonder if representatives and senators will vote for an Indian water settlement that fails to include even the amount of water being awarded. By leaving it out of his bill, Jon Tester is trying to accomplish just that. Now let's look at just a few of the federal goodies that Senator Tester proposes be included in the settlement. Keep in mind that the hidden settlement document gives the United States ownership and control over the water in western Montana through their trust responsibility to the CSKT. It is designed to move most of this water out of the state, making it available for corporate interests to take advantage of, while leaving Montanans out in the cold. On top of the valuable water resource, Senate Bill 3013 authorizes a $2.3 billion payment to the tribes. The language of the bill indicates that a large portion of the settlement will be used to move western Montana away from an agricultural economy to a tribal economy instead. It is designed to destroy the livelihood of thousands of families living in western Montana. 90% of the land served by the Flathead Irrigation Project are owned by non-Indians. However, that did not deter Jon Tester. He proposes to give complete ownership of the project to the tribes. This federal infrastructure asset is the largest project in the state of Montana, and this transfer is being done with no studies, no appraisal of the asset, no discussion with irrigators, and no review of its impact on the local economy and property values. Tribal Council Chairman Vernon Finley has publicly stated that the Flathead Irrigation Project was the most catastrophic environmental disaster in the history of the reservation. By awarding the tribe ownership of the project, Tester has paved the way for its eventual decommissioning. Senate Bill 3013 includes language that will ensure that studies will not be done until after the compact is ratified. This is an intentional attempt to ensure that legislators are unable to make an informed decision. This language is intended to increase the odds of ratification of this agreement and to protect the tribe by circumventing the intent of laws such as NEPA that require these studies in the first place. Tester also eliminates the Flathead Allotment Act promise to turn management of the irrigation project over to the owners of the lands served by it, and gives it to the tribes instead. Because the water settlement gives the tribe the right to administer all of the water, it places non-Indians under the jurisdiction of the CSKT for their water needs. Assuming Tester did his due diligence on the bill, he clearly condones that consequence of the settlement. The $64 billion question is, will other senators and representatives so willingly remove citizens from the protection of the Constitution and the state by placing them under the jurisdiction of a government they cannot participate in? Only time will tell. So we ask again, did Jon Tester complete his due diligence before sponsoring Senate Bill 3013? Did he help write the bill? Did he read all of it, including the 1,500-page settlement? Does he believe it is an appropriate settlement and that it is constitutional? Was the tribe already paid for this land and water through the Indian Claims Commission or other legal actions? If they were already paid, then why are we paying them again? Without any studies, how can he possibly understand its consequences and the financial impacts on 360,000 of his constituents? Has he ever attended a meeting of citizens who are concerned about and oppose the compact? If he didn't do these things, is he simply incompetent? Perhaps the answer is simpler than that. It is more likely that he made a conscious decision to advance the interests of the tribal corporation elite while ignoring what is in the best interest of other Montanans. Because his bill reads as a tribal wish list, Tester's loyalty to tribal corporations is abundantly clear. We therefore believe Jon Tester knows exactly what he's doing. He is okay with giving federal infrastructure assets to an unaccountable tribal government, and he does condone placing non-Indians under the jurisdiction of the tribe for their water needs. If this is the best that Montana's senior senator can come up with, he doesn't deserve to be a senator for the state of Montana, and he should not be reelected in 2018.
I'm going to take a hardcore approach on this thing because I think it needs to be that way. Sometimes we get kind of mellowed down, we want to be nice to each other. We're still sitting there smiling across the table and getting nowhere. So we take a hardcore approach to this thing. I personally stand here and claim all the water within my Aboriginal territory as my water. So,
the tribe spoke, and Jon Tester listened. Senate Bill 3013 gives them most, if not all, of the water in their Aboriginal territory, consisting of 11 counties where 360,000 non-Indian Montanans reside. Tester endorses a settlement of unprecedented proportions that will blaze a trail for all tribal water settlements in the future. If ratified, one small tribe will receive Aboriginal claims to nearly all of the water in their ceded territory both on and off the reservation, a $2.3 billion settlement, ownership of the largest irrigation project in Montana, jurisdiction over non-Indians, and control over the economy of western Montana. Jon Tester and his Senate Bill 3013, they are bad for Montana and bad for our country. Thank you for your time.